So there's something quite extraordinary hidden in some ancient texts, and I specifically love the Upanishads. And the sages described how to know thyself. This is a really important teaching if we want to understand our psychic awareness and mediumship. It all starts with knowing thyself. And so what they were also describing was the actual mechanics of intuition. So we can look at them carefully. The senses perceive the outer world, and the Upanishads began with something really obvious, that the senses gather information. So our eyes can see, our ears can hear, our skin can feel, and our mind receives these signals and interprets them. And that's the mind's job, to interpret the signals of the senses. But this is an outer job. This is from the outer reality. And so one question that comes directly from the Kena Upanishad asks, by whom commanded does the mind think? By whom directed does the eyes see and ears hear? And so the mind interprets what the senses perceive, and they gather raw experiences, because that's what the senses do. Quite often we'll have a really odd feeling about a situation we're ready to step into, but we don't really know why. Our mind might try and interpret, but in the very beginning, it's a raw sensation, and you feel that in your senses and in your body and in your energetic senses where your chakras sit. And it might feel a little unsafe or unpleasant or unfamiliar. But the sages realize something really profound, that the mind is not the ultimate knower. As I said, the mind is the interpreter of the senses. It even interprets our thoughts, but it is not the ultimate knower. And we can test this because our thoughts will appear and disappear. They're not permanent. And that means that something deeper is aware of our mind. So this something deeper that is aware of the mind was studied in the Upanishads. And it's incredibly subtle. But the sages knew that there is an awareness that observes the mind itself. This awareness notices thoughts coming and going, arising and falling away, notices emotions as they come through our body and dissipate, notices sensations on our skin that also flow and dissipate in the energy, and it notices perception. And just like our thoughts coming in and going, that ebb and flow, noticing perception sits in there. And this is why sometimes if you're studying psychic mediumship or you're just an intuitive person, you may not be able to force your intuition. It happens naturally. Unless you're going to classes to develop your intuition and your mediumship, you probably won't have the skills to actually have this perception as part of your daily life. And so although this awareness notices the perception coming and going, but the awareness is untouched. The awareness of this doesn't change. The awareness is the witness, watching the mind, watching the thoughts, watching everything. And that awareness remains unchanged. It's stable. And so in the Upanishads, they describe consciousness as the seer behind the eyes, the hearer behind the hearing, the thinker behind the thought, and the knower being known. So like the witness observer watching your mind. This is the witness consciousness that we often talk about. Intuition arises when your mind becomes very quiet. If you can be in this witness observer state, watching the experiences, watching your mind, watching the psychic impressions that are coming to you, just watching. If we're in that quiet state, you will actually have a clearer understanding, clearer experiences, and clearer psychic impressions and intuitive impressions. So when the mind becomes still, that deeper knowing, that witness awareness becomes clearer. And so what will happen then is your psychic impressions and psychic experiences, they don't come from reasoning. The reasoning is your mind getting in the way. They come through naturally as raw sensation, and then you sit with it for a couple of minutes and ask yourself, is this mine? Does it belong to someone else? You might be standing next to someone who has had a very anxious experience. So asking, is this my feeling, or is this my, it could be joy. You could have a flash of a holiday and you think, why am I having this image come into my head right now? So sitting with the information for a couple of minutes, trying not to allow the mind to interpret, just staying with the bodily sensations, staying with the energetic, psychic sensations that are coming through. Trying not to label straight away, because then we go down our own rabbit hole and create our own story, because our imagination loves a story. So there are two kinds of knowledge. There's the lower knowledge, which is learning information and intellectual understanding. And then we have the higher knowledge, which is from direct knowing of reality. And this higher knowing is immediate and intuitive. It's not constructed by thought. So we can't reach that place of deep psychic wisdom through our thoughts. What we have to do is move them over to the side a little bit. So we're watching them, witnessing them. We're in that awareness state. Then it's almost like our mind gives us permission to shut it off a little bit, quieten it down a little bit, and have the witness observer appear and just watch what's coming through. And you'll notice that when you quieten your mind more, the more you can stay in the witness observer state, the clearer your psychic impressions become, because we are all psychic, but most of us haven't learnt to turn our outward mind off long enough to see what's underneath, because your psychic ability and your intuition is underneath all of this. So when we develop, it's not like you're building a new skill. It's an ability you already have. But when we sit in the witness observer state, or we sit quietly in meditation, what we're doing is giving it space to arise naturally. So if you're at the beginning of your journey, this is an amazing thing for you to do, is to sit in the stillness, sit in a quiet space, even if it's 10 minutes a day, and try to just watch and observe what's going on in your body. And when something comes through your mind, if you start thinking, rather than trying to shut it off, give it a label. If you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, you can say thinking. Or if you're worrying about a friend and you feel anxiety coming up, you can say worrying. Just give your thoughts a label, and that sort of contains them so that you're not following them and going down a rabbit hole. What am I going to have for dinner? I've got some carrots in there, but yeah, I had carrots last night. So labeling your thoughts as they come up. Are they worry? Are they joy? Are they fear? Or labeling just thinking. And as soon as you label the word thinking while the thoughts come through, you're again witnessing them and observing that you are thinking. And then you can quietly let that thought just fade away. And if you have to do it 1,000 times, that's okay. It's part of the practice. But this will help remove all of the obscurations that you have energetically and emotionally and spiritually, to allow your natural ability, your natural intuition to come to the surface, because it's already there. Maybe you just haven't stopped long enough to allow it to come to the surface. And there's a little exercise we can do to have an experience of the awareness of your mind rather than your mind being in control. So the quick exercise you can do to just watch your own mind and understand this witness observer state is just stop for a minute and ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought will be.